What's going on, guys? So I'm making this video to help the people uh, who are new to the DW12 or who are at least new to the road side of DW12 in order to help you guys understand um, what you should be looking for in terms of your practicing and some techniques that will make you faster in the long run, hopefully. Um, I'm not gonna pretend that I know everything, but these are some of the tricks that helped me get faster over the last couple years, so I thought I'd share them with you. So the first thing that we want to do when we go into a practice session is, so I normally have my engines at -5 decibels, but you want to take your engines as low as you can go and get your tires up as high as they can go. The reason that you want this is because most of you guys won't have motion simulator rigs or butt kickers or anything like that. So there are two ways that we as sim racers get inputs. One is through the wheel and through any force feedback and vibration that you have, but the second is entirely auditory. So the way that we know whether the tires are starting to lose grip is mostly through the tire sounds in the car, as well as a little bit through the wheel. And so whenever I go into a practice session, I like to turn the engines down to -10, which will force me to sort of bump up the volume a little bit on my headset here. But the end result is that the tires will be louder, so you'll be able to hear when the tires are actually sort of breaking traction, and hopefully that will help you sort of know when you should be braking and how hard you should be braking, and just give you a little bit better sense of what kind of feedback you're getting from the tires in terms of the sounds that you're getting. So that's the first thing that I normally do. So I'm just going to show you guys. We're starting on lap 5 here. So let me just back it up. So basically, actually, why don't we start on lap 7, because this one is. So I'll show you one of my worst laps, and then show you some of my better laps, and you can sort of contrast the two between each other, so that you can sort of see what I'm looking for whenever I'm practicing a new track or getting back into a track, in order to be more consistent. Because one of the things that I sort of get is, I'll tell my friends and my teammates, well, you got to hit your apexes better, but then they ask me, well, what does that mean? So I'm going to try and describe to you what I sort of look for as I'm going through. So let's go here. So in a turn 1, I'm braking just before the 50. So going into the corner, you could hear I locked up just as I hit the brakes. So my threshold was just a little bit too far. Immediately backed off. So it stopped squealing, but then I was carrying a little bit too much speed because I backed off a little bit too far. And so now I'm having to trail brake, and my front left has locked up into the corner. So not ideal, but you kind of want to never hear that lockup, because once a tire locks up, especially in the DW12, you actually have to back off more to get it to unlock than you would if you hadn't locked it up in the first place. So you actually, not only does the tire lock reduce your braking capacity, but trying to get the tire unlocked also reduces your braking capacity. So your goal in this car is to never have your tires lock if possible. So just roll it forward a little bit here. Actually, let me back it up. So, and you can even see over on the left where it's locked. So I missed the apex slightly. I wanted to actually be with sort of the the one side of my tire at least hitting this rumble strip over on the left-hand side here, because that's the apex that I'm trying to hit. So right about here is the point where I want to hit. And I'm just to the right of that, so I've missed the apex slightly. Coming down through here, I actually hit that apex pretty well, and I'm able to power through again right on the inside curb. I'm powering towards the exit curb. Going down the straight, so again, I'm picking out a place to brake. So the place that I've picked out to brake here is this little piece of asphalt that is used for service vehicles to get from the track to this area over here. So I'm going to try and hit my mark there. Much better through the braking zone there. You can hear that the tires are all not unlocked, or sorry, not locked as I'm going through. And again, one of the other things that I want to bring you guys attention to is my actual brake pedal here, because I'm not actually putting at any point in time 100% brake in. It's actually, or sorry, I'm putting it just at the very beginning in order to initiate the process, but just barely for less than a tenth of a second. And then after that, it's right at about that 60 to 70%. That's the threshold where the brake's going to lock, and depending on how you have your pedals set up and what your pedals feel like, it'll be different on every car, but basically your goal is to be right at that threshold consistently without actually locking up your tire. So again, through there, if we back up, I'm pretty much on the apex, a little bit right of where I want to be. I want to be a little bit more on the rumble strip, on the inside curb there, but not too bad. All right, so hit the exit curve there. I'm going to talk about that in a lap or two. So again, we're coming up to basically a third gear right-hander followed by a second or third gear right-hander again. So it's basically a double apex right-hander. So as I'm coming in, I'm a little bit to the right of where I want to be, but pretty good. But I slowed down a little bit too early and I lost some speed coming into the corner. I was very tight to the inside in here, so it's actually putting me at a little bit of a disadvantage for hitting the apex of this second part of the double right-hander. And you can see I was much further away, and I'm also pushing much more directly towards the exit curb than I want to be, and I'm not actually able to get back to the throttle fully up, basically till this point here. So that's actually slowed me down a fair bit just by taking that too narrow an entry and too shallow an entry into that corner. So now basically what that has resulted in is I've taken a fairly late apex, and with this corner you can actually go almost onto this sort of corrugated stuff over by the grass here. You can actually go over most of this strip, and that's actually the fastest way around here. So even though I've hit the curb there, it's not actually the best corner I could have gone through there. I came out a little bit too close to the left-hand side here. This is actually a pretty good corner where I was right where I wanted to be. The only problem that I had here was I didn't get the power down good enough coming in. So now as I'm coming over here, I'm too far to the left, which is causing me, and I braked a little bit too late. So I've locked up the front right, and I'm riding that lock up through the whole corner and basically dragging the brake and the throttle a little bit to sort of compensate. So I do manage to hit the apex fairly nicely there. but slow off the corner because I took such a hot entry into the corner. So I've actually lost a fair bit of time on exit because I was a little bit too greedy on entry. Not bad on the curve there. And again, you have basically at Interlagos, you can't hit this green part here, but you can hit the brown and you can hit the curb. So if you want to use up and down the road, you can. But I make a mess of this corner here. So let's talk about this. So I braked a little bit too late. This corner is really hard to choose a braking point because, like, you think you're going to choose one right, like you're going to be able to pick out your braking point from right here, and just as you get towards it, where did the corner go, right? It's gone from a nice, you're on a nice downhill, you can see the whole corner, it's going to be nice, and then deceptively it just sort of goes away from you. So this green, there's two green things here, is what I try to use. So there's this one right here, this small one, and then this larger one. So if you break in between those two, and probably a little bit closer to the first one, then you'll be breaking at the correct point. So where do I want to be here? I want to be right on this apex. Where am I? I'm about a car length to the left, and as you can hear, I'm sliding the rear of the car because I didn't get slowed down enough coming into the corner. So the rear end started to jump out, and I had to modulate the brake, and then that pushed me out wide, and I'm way too far over these corrugated exit curbs for comfort. So now, start going down the straight. So that was a 118.6. Let's compare and contrast that with my fastest lap, which was a 117.9. So again, looking at the brake just before the 50. Notice no front left lock up, much more on the curve there. Flipped that curve a little bit less, and just overall much neater that first section. So if we just back up, and I'll go corner by corner here. So again, no real lock up here. And before, my tire was about here. Now it's going to be right on that apex. There we go. And then again, see where my tire is on this apex. I'm carrying just a tad too much speed through here, which forced me a little bit too far to the left, but definitely manageable. I'm okay with it. And coming back and breaking at that concrete patch, no lockup, all over that inside curve, and again all over this curve. Out wide again. So this time, so I was about 2 feet further to the right last time I went through here versus this time. So you'll see this time I'm not actually correcting the steering wheel that much. I'm actually able to hold a nice constant radius, whereas before I actually straightened the steering wheel for just a split second in order to try and get set up for this corner. But I have a much better entry, and the consequence of that is I'm back to the throttle much sooner and much more powerful. So by the time I'm braking for this next corner, I'm already a couple tenths, probably about 3 tenths ahead of where I was, just by nailing that first corner and this complex in here just being better through here, through that double apex right-hander. So this time you're going to notice I take much more of this right-hander, the sharp right-hander here than last time. I put my wheel almost onto this brown corrugated stuff, but not quite. and the result is that I'm about 3 feet further to the right as I come out of the corner, which just sets me up much nicer for this long left-hander. Again, I keep my left tire all over that inside curb, and it allows me to this time get a better exit coming out. So in this case, I was about 3 feet to the left as I approached this corner the last time, and I'm able to take a much nicer line through here. Actually use all of the exit as opposed to sort of diving in. You'll see that no lockup this time, virtually no lockup. It just sets me up much nicer for this left-hander. So the thing about hitting apex and exit curbs and all those things is that, especially on a track like Interlagos, and this is why I'm making the video specifically at Interlagos, not just because we're going there next week, is because hitting one apex leads you to hitting another apex, but not hitting an apex can lead you to a cascade effect, where if you're missing an apex in one corner, then the next 3 or 4 corners at least are going to be worse as well. So you're not only giving away time by missing an apex in one corner, you're giving it away cumulatively over the course of a lap, and as you can see, it can add up to 0.6 a second, even a couple seconds, just because you're not quite hitting your apexes well enough. So again, we're nicely on the curb, braking right at that piece of the darker piece of green on the corrugated stuff. I'm not quite as far on the corrugated stuff, so I'm actually keeping a little bit more traction with my left side tires. It's a little more interesting to brake like that, but you get a little bit better braking action on the asphalt than on the corrugated stuff. So as long as you can control it, you should. It's actually a little bit better. So this time the back end isn't stepping out. There's a little bit of a bump if you catch too much of this this inside curb here. So I tried to put it right on the blacker part. I missed it just a little bit, but it was much cleaner than it was last time through here. Just those 3 things, or those few things that I showed you and really highlighted, was the difference between a 1:17.978 and a 1:18.603. So that was 0.6 of a second over the course of a 1 minute 18-second lap, which is pretty significant. So you can see why so many people say the best way to get better in this car is to practice, because not only does it help you with your setups, but it also helps you just hitting your apex better and more consistently. That's the single thing that's going to improve your speed the most. So we're going to look at one last lap here, and I'm going to sort of stop the video less and talk just sort of over top of it. So again, just listening to the tires, you can hear that I don't lock it up on this lap. I was actually probably better through that sequence than I was on my 1:17.9 lap. Again, no lockup. The tires aren't really protesting. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is exit curbs. So exit curbs are really nice really nice to aim for when you're sort of at the limit of the tires and at the limit of what the car can handle. In this particular instance right here, coming out of this slow left-hander, we don't really get up enough speed to force me to use the whole road. So it's actually about 0.02 of a second, and that's all. But it's actually about 0.02 of a second quicker for me to go through here a little bit more to the left than it is to go through fully hitting that exit curb. And that's simply because we have a very short straight, and we had a very short straight leading into that curb that doesn't allow us to actually use up all the car. In some cases, what people will do is when we encounter these types of corners, we'll actually reduce downforce to the point that we're going out all the way to the exit curb. In this case, there are two corners that I sort of key off at Interlagos, or actually, sorry, three corners. There's the third corner, which is that long left-hander after the downhill section. There's this corner we just went through, and then there is the downhill right after the second very tight right-hander, just before that final left-hand corner onto the long straight. So in this case, I've maximized 2 out of the 3, which is why I'm not reducing any more downforce, because I'm actually a little bit sketchy through the third one, that corner towards the end of the lap. So I feel like I've maximized my setup as much as I can. And so in this case, for me, it's actually a little bit quicker to just stay off the exit curb and stay as close to the left, setting me up for these double right-handers. All right, so let's keep going. Again, able to keep a nice constant radius with my wheel. Get lots of that curve there. Now, this is where I was actually a little bit slower, was through this section, because I came off the inside curb and locked up my brakes just a little bit into here. I was able to keep them from locking up too bad. So this was the corner I was talking about. Pretty much maximized how comfortable I am going through there. And I was a little bit too far. You could see as I went through there, there's just this bump right there that unsettles the car and prevents you from getting the power down as nicely as you want to, which is why it was just that width through the long left-hander and through that quick left onto the main straight. That was the difference between the 117.978 and the 118.05. I probably was on pace for about a tenth quicker this lap before I made those two mistakes, so I ended up being about a half-tenth slower. So basically, you can see almost by that my times are sort of in groupings. I've got 117.978 and 118.05. So that's sort of my best times so far. Then you got this 118.3, 118.3, 118.2, and then 118.6, 118.6, 118.6. So you'll basically find that if I went through each of these laps, I would be messing up in similar ways on my 118.6s versus my 118.3s, and then my 117, 118 flat area. That's the best that I can do with this particular setup in this particular weather, at least at this point in my testing. So getting that type of consistency where you sort of know you're hitting all your apexes as well as you can, and you've put together the lap that you believe you can string together consistently. The next step after you've sort of identified all the breaking points and all the apexes that you need to hit is to go out and practice for as long as you can, really, to try and consistently hit that lap. And the idea isn't to push too hard. The idea is to work up sort of gradually to it. So if you start at the 118.6s, then gradually work up so you're consistently hitting 118.3s and then hitting 118.0s. One of the things that I often find myself doing is I'll chase the fastest time, particularly when I'm in a group practice. And really what you should be doing is working on your own lines, because you'll eventually get your own, like you'll work your way up there. So don't try and push the car beyond what it's capable of and beyond what you're capable of at this point. And sort of circling back and tying this all back together, the best way to do that is again by turning down that engine volume and making sure that you have those tires cranked as high as you can, because then you can really hear when you're sort of torturing those tires and pushing just that little bit too hard. And then you can back off the next lap a little bit. Still shoot for as late a braking point as you can, but just back it off that 10 extra meters or so that it's nice and comfortable. And then just start making sure that your inputs are consistent. So making sure that, for instance, your brakes, you're going, because the threshold really doesn't change corner to corner except if the track itself is either off camber or on a hill or something like that, but the threshold it is on a flat piece of tarmac approximately the same. So you should be going approximately the same distance with your braking input every time. You should be knowing approximately, in terms of how good your set is, when you can be getting onto the throttle and how hard you can get on the throttle and how quickly you can get on the throttle, because it's those are the inputs that along with hitting the apexes well, that will find you the most time on the track. It's not in the setup. Like setups, yeah, they can be important because but the way that they're important is that they get you comfortable with the car that you're driving. So my particular setup is the way that I drive the car. You can ask my teammate Liam how comfortable he is driving my set, and he'll say not at all. And I tried to drive his set and found it very, very loose. He likes to threshold brake a lot more than I do. So we have different ways of setting up the car, but we can be equally fast. He's more consistent than I am, but basically the message that I'm trying to convey is practice is very important, but it's also very important to know what you're looking for in terms of looking for that apex, looking at your braking and your throttle inputs, trying to be as smooth as possible with all your inputs, be it steering, be it throttle, be it braking, and then giving yourself the tools to know how to do that. So setting up your audio so that you can hear the inputs or hear the response of the car to your inputs. So I hope you guys found this video informative. Let me know questions, comments, that type of thing. All right, talk to you later.